were testing an organization kind of for the first time, and they had just installed a data loss prevention tool. So that's something that stands to make sure emails or uploads outside the organization are not taking intellectual property or data that shouldn't go out, not getting it out. So they just installed that, and they were really proud about it. And that device was telling, it was blocking this, it was blocking that, and it was doing its job. It was stopping a bunch of stuff.
Hey guys, and welcome to the Grow IT podcast. One of your hosts here, Trey King, and today we are very excited to have our guest, Mr. Christian Sorensen from SightGain. And today we'll be diving into his story a bit, as well as what it is, what his company does, and then, as always, some engaging insights into the technology industry. So make sure to stick around for this one. But without further ado, Christian, welcome. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks, Treg. Appreciate the opportunity and happy to join you and kind of spend some time with you today.
Yeah, man, that sounds good. Christian, if you don't mind, if we can start by you just to introduce yourself and just tell us a bit about your background, a snippet or two of your story.
Yeah. So military is kind of the predominant aspect of my background. So I was an Air Force officer, cyber warfare, so doing offensive, defensive, and communications type stuff in the military. But really,
Wow.
three things jump out, and that these three threads will carry through the conversation is cybersecurity, like we learned in the military side, but also my background is kind of optimization and systems optimization, right? So trying to get all the things working together to do the right thing and make the best decision with the information that you have or that you can get, right? And even
Yeah.
weighing whether you should spend money to get more information or not. And then the third thing is just business. I got an MBA along the way. That's where I met my wife, was at our MBA program, and
Yeah.
kind of business aspect is important, right? It makes the world go round, and really we focus a lot on the technology side, but the business side is really where we need to make our voices heard and understood in order to make the best decisions. So those are kind of three main things in my background that I like to kind of talk about, and really kind of what we do at SightGain is bringing all three of those together.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Tell me, Christian, how did you get into this business sector, right? It's what was that you mentioned, come from a military background, but what was it that sparked your initial, interest, and why are you so passionate about it?
Yeah, I think growing up, I always wanted to get into my own business at some point, even when I was a little kid. But you can't really do that while you're in the military. So kind of plotting your escape as you get out. We started off as a service company, right? So we were doing consulting and helping organizations make decisions, really. But there was opportunity to make product, right? To help uh, serve more than one customer at a time, serve many through software. And we saw opportunity to help really optimize the training aspect and help organizations get their people used to threats, understand what those threats mean in an automated way, as opposed to what we were doing at the time was using stopwatches and having them raise their hand when they saw something. Now we've built all of that, as well as everything else that precedes that, into a software platform that helps you really figure out what we should do with the performance of our current cybersecurity portfolio.
Tell me, based on your expertise, you've obviously been doing this for quite some time. What are the current market trends that you are aware of? What ways are the wind blowing these days?
Yeah, I think a couple things really pop into mind. Is one, simplification, right? So there's a lot of organizations that are trying to standardize on one vendor family, right? Whether that's CrowdStrike or Microsoft or Cisco, right? Like they want it all to work together as seamlessly as possible, right? To
Seamlessly.
eliminate as much complexity as possible. Um,
Interesting.
and then the other thing that we've seen is really the uptick in managed service, right? Um, trying to get economies of scale, economies of talent, really, for your SOC, for your folks that are going to be responding to things. You want them to be performing at a high level, but you don't necessarily need them performing at a high level all the time, right? So that managed
Good point.
service and outsourcing of cybersecurity services is really a trend that we're starting to see more and more, and that we're partnering and preparing to help enable.
Abel. Tell me, and then having said that, what's your take on the current market sentiment?
Yeah, it's a little bit kind of still hesitant, right? 23, 24.
Yeah.
We're kind of down years in cybersecurity, which is surprising, right? There's not any lack of malicious activity that's happening that's actually increasing, but
Mm.
just with the economy going on the way it is in the US as around the world, people are holding back and not buying more and more new stuff. They're trying to make better use of what they have, as well as optimize their portfolio, rationalize what they have. Um, we started to see that change a little bit here at the end of 2024, but kind of time will tell as far as are we getting out of that mode and back into more acquisition type activities and being able to make updates and changes that are necessary to get them to a higher level of performance and a higher level of maturity.
The I think this might be a good time for Christian, if you don't mind, just to explain to the listeners, maybe elaborate a bit more on what is it that your company does.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's kind of fascinating. I kind of go back to first principles, right?
Yeah.
Um, IT and cloud and all that kind of stuff really enables business.
Yeah.
It also is vulnerable in certain aspects, right? So those vulnerabilities are being taken advantage of by criminals, hackers, malicious people, and entities. So at a first principle level, cybersecurity stands in that breach between here's all the things that we're trying to do to get business and organization activities done,
Yeah.
and those that would want to take advantage of that or hold that at ransom or extort it or whatever the case may be. Cybersecurity is in the middle of that. So, from that first principle approach, we have not seen organizations test their cybersecurity end to end against the threats that are out there, right? So, what
Yeah.
SightGain does is help organizations really see not what they're catching, right? They already get alerts on what they're catching, what threats they're stopping, all that kind of stuff. But by testing the threats that are out there and the known exploits that are out there, we can really show organizations what they're missing, why they're missing it, and how to get better. And it's more than just taking your car to the shop. We are
Yeah.
almost guaranteed we're going to find something wrong that is putting your business and your organization at
At
risk
risk.
that you didn't
Mm.
know about, right? Like that preventative sort of approach to say, hey, we need to know this and we need to be able to um, prepare for it now, not wait for it to happen. That's what we do, and it's across the technology stack, the analytics stack, all the data flow and data processes, as well as the security operations center and the people that are in that security operations center. They're there to meet it. All of those have to work together. It's a very large orchestra and everybody has to
Yeah.
play their part, but there's not really a good way to figure it. You can't really hear if they are or are not, especially, if the drums are off beat, you can't really hear it right now. So that's what we do, is help to make that visible, make it understandable on how to make those improvements happen.
So, my take on it is like rather prevention than cure,
Yeah.
if in labor terms, right? What would your take be as well on, if cybersecurity fails silently, a couple of people would say as well, right? What
Yeah.
would your take be on that?
Yeah, no, that's exactly the case, and that's why it's really important is you don't have to let it fail, right? You can
Yeah.
know ahead of time, and it does fail silently. There's no alerts when things are not working, right? Like that's just how cybersecurity works today. So you want to activate those defenses now, right? And really the value proposition that we have is you can do that manually,
Yeah.
but that's expensive and it takes a long time, and then it has to be repeated at the
Okay.
same cost, right? What we do is do that via software to say, hey, we know what the threats are, and those are
Yeah.
added to, every day, every week. But let's test against those and make sure our systems, our process, our analytics, our people are working the way that we think they should be, the way that we spent our money for them to do. Are
Yeah.
there service providers? Are they doing their job, right? Like they're telling us what they're catching, but we don't know whether they're missing something or they're just not being we're not being targeted, right? So you want to know that ahead of time.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't want to know that they're sick? Who wouldn't want to know that they have something that they want to fix, right? That's really what SightGain brings to the table is uh, bringing that information to the top and helping you understand not only what is going on, but why it's important, how to fix it.
How to fix it. Tell me, Christian, is it maybe possible that you can give a tangible, like an example of, without mentioning the client's name, but just like a typical case study where where you guys have actually like picked some of these threats up from a preventative points of view, if you don't mind, just to share one or so.
Yeah, yeah. There's a number of stories I could share. One that I really like is just we were testing an organization kind of for the first time, and they had just installed a data loss prevention tool. So that's something that stands to make sure emails or uploads outside the organization are not taking intellectual property or data that shouldn't go
Uh,
out, not getting it out. So they just
uh,
installed that, and they were really proud about it. And that device was telling the security operations center that it was blocking this, it was blocking that, and it was doing its job. It was stopping a bunch of stuff.
yeah,
So we tested, and this was on the first 2 days of testing. Kind of the first time right after we'd had done the installation, we did some exfiltration activities, and and we saw on the report that those were successful, meaning that they got through. It was uploaded and received on the other end. And what that means is that new device was not doing its job. And just to your question, like security fails silently, they were getting alerts that that activity was being blocked. But what they
yeah,
found out is like after they said, well, let me go check on that. What they
yeah.
found out it was in bypass, right? So it was stopping the bypass, but not stopping the actual traffic. And that was a huge value add for that organization from the very
Definitely.
first
Yes.
day that we installed it because they had spent millions of dollars on getting those things installed throughout their ecosystem, but it wasn't actually effective, right? Like at the end
Effective.
of the day, you want to know that it's working. And right now, organizations only know what they are being told they're blocking and they're
Good
protecting.
point.
The rest of the unit, like the dark matter that's out there, the threats that could be targeting them, they don't really know if they're stopping them or not.
Very, very interesting. Tell me, if we can maybe just give some thought to looking at business as a whole, right? Like I mentioned, you've been doing this for quite some time now. In your opinion, Christian, what type of mindset, right, would you say is needed to like be a successful founder of a business?
Yeah, I think the biggest distinction I've seen,
Yeah.
and this again goes back to effectiveness, right? And anybody that's technically competent can start a company,
Mm.
but it's really important and critical to solve a business problem, right?
Mm.
So instead of just building something that you think is cool, you
Yeah.
have to build something that solves a problem that is important and customers are willing to pay for. That's a really big distinction. And what we see often um, is that you can build something and be comfortable with the technical side
Yeah.
while ignoring marketing, while ignoring sales. But ultimately that company is likely 95% chance that it's going to fail because it's a huge world, and your thing is not going to get noticed unless you're doing the marketing, unless you're doing the sales that actually solves a problem that people can understand.
Yeah, there's a lot of times that I've spoken to like young entrepreneurs where they, you know, got a brilliant idea, and let's actually say they're out of beta phase, and they are ready to launch this idea, and then, or the products or service rather, and they put it on the market, and then they, a lot of these young guys tend to think that it will just happen because it's such a good idea, which it might be,
Hmm.
or even solves a good, solves a problem. There's a market for it, but the time spent or the knowledge acquired, or what they needed to put in, from just what you said now, from the other side of the business, you can have the best product or service in the world, but if nobody knows about it, and if you talk to that market in the right way, the kites just won't fly. So I fully
Yeah.
agree with that's quite profound what you mentioned now. The
Yeah, and even making sure you know who you're selling to, right?
Yeah,
Like for our business, we could sell to the CISO, we could sell to the CFO, we could sell to
yeah,
consultants and VARs and service providers, or we could sell to the security operations center. And those are all different messages, different personas that have different pains, that have different things that they need to solve to be successful in their jobs, right? So you have to
yeah.
know that and then really understand through conversations with customers as well as prospects, or those that you're trying to get to be customers, what they really need solved, and are you doing that, right? Like, just you can't keep trying to find the ones that's going to like what you built. You have to really figure out, is there a thread of pain, a thread of a problem there that you're picking up on and you know how to solve differently or better, faster, cheaper than anybody else can address it.
Yeah, those are such valid points you're mentioning now. Um, if you don't mind, maybe just to add to that. Now I mentioned now the young entrepreneurs. Is there maybe some important things that you've learned in your career, up until now, that you don't mind, maybe one or two, to share what you have picked up, where you say that, except now obviously for the things you've just mentioned now, but maybe something else that you've picked up, small things that actually makes a difference, when you started this business.
Yeah, so probably two things that come to mind. One is that it's really hard, right? Like it's not for the faint of heart, or maybe ignorance sometimes is bliss because you just gotta have optimism and go. But it's hard. It's harder work than a normal job, a normal 9 to 5, and that means a lot more risk as well. So that's kind of just worth saying again and again. And then associated with the risk is um, probably want to start, if you're going to do a startup, you probably want to have that beginning while you already have something else, another job, right? So you can moonlight on the startup, you can moonlight on the weekends, and really kind of
Interesting,
get
yeah.
going. But that helps de-risk it quite a bit and gives you a lot more runway because you're not spending money that you may or may not have. You're actually just working on a project, right? And then
But
with that work, that if there's customers and problems and pain and people are willing to pay for it, that'll start to emerge. And then at a certain point, you can jump in
switch
there
over.
full time. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's what we've seen be successful, and we really did that with services first, right? To say, hey,
yeah.
we're working on kind of a time and material basis, but at some point we made the switch over to the product side.
Tell me, Christian, where can the listeners get hold of you and your business?
Yeah, our primary place that we're engaging and doing thought leadership is on LinkedIn. We do have a blog on our site as well. So on LinkedIn, just look for SightGain or Christian Sorensen, and then on our website, it's sightgain.com.
.com. Lovely. I need to thank you for hopping on today. There's a couple of very interesting takes that you had today, and I'm sure there's a couple of guys that's going to make notes.
Yeah.
was very good information. Thank you for your contribution. I can fully understand why you and your business, why you guys are so successful. You've got some serious good value points. That you mentioned, and what you guys portray and obviously incorporate in your business. So thanks, Christian. Appreciate you hopping on, man.
Yeah, you too, Treg, and I really appreciate the time. If there's any questions, feel free to reach out to me directly or at info@sightgain.com, and happy to answer them whenever you have them.
Excellent. All the best, Christian. Take care.
All right, thanks, Treg.